we desire, therefore, we are turning spirituality upside down. Because spirituality is precisely the curtailment of desire so that we may learn to respect the nature of things. Now, proceeding from the foregoing qualifications of the different notions of spirituality, you will tease out three key components that will help us form a spirituality in the age of social media. Namely, nature, self, and the idea of the good. Okay. Nature, the self, and the idea of the good. These are three basic concepts that we will now use to construct and conceive of a spirituality in the age of social media. We go on to the second part of this presentation. Spirituality in the age of social media. And at this point, I am going to use the Gospel of Matthew's account of the temptation of the Lord in the desert as a template to structure my presentation. I use the Gospel not because I believe that Christian spirituality is the only valid form of spirituality. Puros man ta mga Kristiyanos dali na. Puros na nituo sa atong Ginoo. Pero I'm not going to favor that particular spirituality. Because there are also other valid spiritualities. But I'm only going to use this part of the gospel, because the temptation in the desert contains all the elements of a true spirituality and its opposite, a false spirituality, in one single story. I therefore use it not by doing exegesis or textual analysis, but simply by treating it as a parable applicable to our modern times. We start with the first temptation. The temptation in the desert. From Matthew chapter 4, verses 1 to 11. The first temptation is the devil tells the Lord, turn these stones into bread. If you are Son of God, turn these stones into bread. And then the Lord replied, man does not live on bread alone. Jesus was hungry after having fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. So the devil suggested, if you are Son of God, turn these stones into bread. Now what's wrong with this? After all, turning stones into bread could be the solution to hunger in the world. O sa aming parokya, kada huwibis, magluto ng pan. Nga, di na mo ibaligya, ang mula ipanghatag. Ayaw mo mga tulito, huwibis kay mahurot ko niya, no? Pero kini siya, the idea was originated by Monsignor Roger Fuentes na magluto ng pan, among bisingan o niya, kay San Martin man ang debosyon sa parokya, ang tao na mudawat sa pan, yung dawaton, ang usa iyang kanon, ang ikaduha iyang ihatag sa kasakiton. No? So it's a form of spirituality. Why is turning stones into bread now? A form of temptation. In fact, this is problem solving. Turning stones into bread is not evil at all. It does not do anyone harm. It simply serves to satisfy the need. The temptation consists, however, in the exercise of power. The principle is, you can, therefore, you must do it. Kung mahimo nimo, kung kaya nimo, himuan yun na. Di ba mo ano yung kultura sa mga bataon karon? Kahimo man ko ano, pero di na ko himuon. It becomes a compulsion. Power becomes a compulsion. Power is not kahum na makahimo kag dagko ng mga butang. Power is, from Latin, is just potentia. And potentia is capacity. Doon ako'y kahum, doon ako'y kapasidad sa paghimo nini, pagkaon karon, pagkatulog, paglakaw. I will do it. That's okay. Because you can do it, then you must do it. Then it becomes now a compulsion. Jesus overcomes the temptation by exercising restraints. Restraints. Now, social media have extended our capacity to do things way beyond anyone can imagine 50 years ago. Doon ang maging mga nagidad ninyong si Twinta karon diha. Kung doon na mo i-research work atong panahon na high school o college mo, asa mo pa doon? Sa library. Inikabot ninyo sa library kung sa inyong pangatuon. Ang katong library card. No? Kanya dito sa library card, inukuhaon, pakitaon ninyo ang author, kunya ihatag ninyo sa librarian, nagakuspod, usually. Kaya dagan na siyang pakitaon nun. Inikabot sa libro, kung mabot manggani, kung wak buminglain, mangita kas index. Masa matong tapik ka, mga panitahon. Iguban na, inikabot ni mo sa index, ni mo sa basawang tong part na i-indicate sa index. It cannot just be reading a part of the book. You need to read the whole context so that you can understand, so that you end up reading the whole book. And it will take one week for you to do that. Kung gusto kang basa. O sa nakalibro, ang imong professor nag-ingon na you have to have in your bibliography 20 books or 20 sources. Ang hindi karon mga bataan, mga bata karon, wa na kailang library. Kay ang ilang na ilang Wikipedia. There was a time na mga 1980s na 1990s mga to, na nalipay kayo ko kay ibaligaan mo encyclopedia. Baligaan, barato kayo, one whole set of encyclopedias. Barato kayo, pero mao ito kay encyclopedias were on the way out. Wa na yung mali ng encyclopedia. Kaya naan na Wikipedia. And then you don't have to search, you just have to click, and there you get the whole description or the topic. Technology in general has made us capable of many things, but the more powerful we have become, the more we should exercise restraints. Pagpugong sa kaugalingon. And what is the measure of restraint? Jesus gives us a standard. We do not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. The Word of God represents the truth about things. Thus, the measure of restraint is the truth about things. The measure of restraint is the truth about things. This is what we mean by nature. Nature is the truth inherent in things. I've already mentioned that earlier. Nga ang kinaiya sa usa ka buta maoy naglakip unsaon nato siya paggamit, unsay atong approach niya, how do we relate with it or with the person in accordance with the particular nature of the thing or of the person. The easiest example is a ball pen. What is the nature of a pen? It's an instrument with which you can write something on paper. Now, the nature of anything is a range of possibilities. So what other uses do you have of a pen? Pwede nimong aeroplano. If you are bored, pwede nimong himuon nga stand. Butan nimong pangan, imong itusok. Mahimo na siya stand big, gamay. Ang uban, gamit niini to clean their ears. Kung dako-dako kang dalungan, okay ra na. Di lang siguro i-Diyos laing mga butang, no? And so, there is a range of possibilities, but if you violate its nature, then you begin to exploit the thing, and you distort the thing, and not only the thing, but yourself. Kaya ngayon mo nang gamitin ng ear cleaner, di lang na nadaot ang ballpen, di na mo suwat kay baga-baga ang katuloy mo nakuan. Ikaw mismo magka-tinta ang indunggan. Instead of cleaning it, nahimo ng indunggan hugaw. And so, when you don't respect the nature of something, you tend to destroy the thing, yourself, and your relationship with the thing or person. Managuyag, sweet pa kayo. Kung sabihang nahitabo, ang di angay nahitabo, lain ang tinanawa nila sa usap-usap. Doon na yung malis niya. A beautiful friendship on dato, pure, clean, karon doon na naman sila ikitabuan. Nga, inikabot sa inahan, paglingaw-lingaw na sila, murag lang sila kung si iba na nakakita sa Ginoo. Pagdukog-dukog. And so, na-distorted na ang relationship. Now, when I was in grade school, our teacher taught us how to dissect frogs. Nandito, apa ba ninyo na itong i-dissect ang frogs at ang atay sa baki, ang tinae sa baki, ang heart sa baki. Now, of course, we don't apply anesthesia. Kaya ang baki, hindi masal mo syagit. When I learned how to do it, I went home and I taught my sister. Ay ninion, iganahan na siya. Iganahan sa ko. Dinagatin baki ang i-dissect. Unya, ang oras ang gitahi, kung ang ipadagan. I don't know what happened now to the frogs. But sometimes you can have murderous tendencies nurtured when you were still younger. That was the most murderous things I did in my life. But it was not respecting the nature of the thing. Restraint is a true mark of spirituality. That's what we do when we abstain from eating meat on Fridays of Lent or when Muslims fast during Ramadan. It is the principle behind religious taboos, like the Hindus who do not eat beef or Jews who do not eat pork. Our engagement of social media must also be marked by restraint. Earlier, Father was telling about responsibility. Restraint is in the amount of time we spend in being engaged with it, but also restraint in the materials we post or the items we view. Social media actually gives us an overload of ICE. You know that, no? It's information, communication, and entertainment. Overload does not affect satisfaction. It causes addiction. There's so much we can make use of social media. It places information at our fingertips. It connects us to people we haven't seen for many years. It allows us to express our views without expense or the need for credentials. It democratizes entertainment, leveling the field for everyone to enjoy what he or she fancies. But like every good thing, we must exercise restraint or we spoil that which we enjoy. We destroy the nature of the thing. Restraint means I can, but I don't have to. Restraint means I can, but I don't have to. Because power is capacity and not compulsion, or not enslavement. One little girl understood the need for restraint in a graphic way when she fed her goldfish. Di ba mo ng isda, mong laugan, mong kaon, nabinin siya, mong kaon. Ang magamay na bata, sige siya pakaon, and right before her eyes, ni butog ang tiyan sa goldfish. She was so horrified. For a little girl, it's very horrible. That's what happens to us when we allow social media to take up our time for productive use, our eyes just pop out from their sockets and we gain nothing at all. So we go now to the second temptation. And here, the devil suggests, throw yourself from the pinnacle of the temple, for the angels of God will catch you. Picture. Okay, that's the Lord being brought to the pinnacle of the temple and Satan suggesting, ambak. Now right away you might think, that's making a show of himself. The suggestion of Satan was, make a show of yourself. But that's not primary. The primary thing is indicated by the response of the Lord. Do not test the Lord your God, or do not put your God, the Lord your God, to the test. What is being tested here? Niwan magud ang yawa amba kay sabon kas mga anghel. What is being tested is the trustworthiness of God, that God will keep His promise. In effect, the devil was tempting Jesus to test whether God is truly trustworthy. But testing whether someone is trustworthy is an oxymoron. It contradicts the very thing you want to prove. Why? Because trust begets trust. And when you test the trustworthiness of somebody with an artificial situation, you're actually declaring your lack of trust. Mura o asawa nga kanang magbitik-bitik sa bana. Magbitik-bitik sa bana. Ano yung nagbitik ko ng bana? Ang bana na makasabot ng ibitik-bitik raday siya, kung saan na itabo. Labi na ang tinudaanon ng bana, niya, ibitik-bitik siya siyang asawa, o na magkabugnaw. Hindi yan. Huwag ko tato'y kanang third party, nisod din mo ng third party. Kaya kaning third party, pura man ang party line without sa telepono ato muna, anong domo? Party line, buta mo ng telepono, kaya mutawag ko, musod siya, insert na siya sa relasyon na doon na mistrust. Wala na yung pagsaling. And it actually happens. Usa ka adunahan na pamilya, nabungkag tungkol kay ang asawa, nagsuhol o detective aron sundan ang iyang bana. Ay nagduda siya ang iyang bana, nagbinuang. Magbinuang ang iyang bana, pero nahibawan sa iyang bana, nagipasundan siya o detective sa iyang asawa. O makadawa ang bana, nag-iinanan siya sa iyang asawa. Nagbuwag siya. Bisang tiguang na siya. Very tragic. Because kung atong testingan ang pagkakasaligan sa usa ka tao, that indicates that we don't trust the person. And when we don't trust the person, there's already a breach in the relationship. Trust begets trust. Okay? And when you when you test the trustworthiness of somebody with an artificial situation, you're actually declaring your lack of trust. The temptation brings us back to the original temptation in the Garden of Eden, when God said to Adam and Eve, "You may eat of the fruit of every tree in the garden, but the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden, you must not eat it nor touch it under pain of death." Sabta ninyo ang kanang story about the fall of man. It's not about eating fruit. So, huwag kadaot ang kaon to prutas, no? Gidili. Ipakaon ang tanan, pero ang gidili ra kanang naas tunga. O abot ang bitin, o miingon. Narabay tao na sakit yung nalungunong dunay bitin sa paraiso, no? Maghimot ang perfect Eden, nagkalitsi-litsi nino, ibibutangan na yung bitin, no? Naroon mga agent rin. Okay. The serpent twisted the words of God, and he asked Eve, did God really say you were not to eat from any of the trees in the garden? You see, that's not what God said. God said you can eat of any of the trees, of the trees, except just one. But the question of the serpent was, did God say that you cannot eat from any of the trees? Inana na yawa. Kung na tayo mga amigal ka, magsungsong mo, magtanong kung mga pagduda sa relasyon, talik sa imong hangbanan. Naturally, Eve said, no, we can eat from any of the trees. Actually, Eve was sensible. Because she remembered what the instruction was. You can eat from all the trees except this one. And she said, you can eat from any of the trees, just not that from the one in the middle of the garden under pain of death. And this is where the serpent found an opening, and he said, no, you will not die. This is where God knows that if you eat from the tree, your eyes will be open and you will be like gods, knowing good from evil. What the serpent planted in the heart of Eve was suspicion. Nga nagduda na si Eva nga giilad rami sa Dios kay ang Dios nahadlok nga basig mamahimo ning gamhanan. That God was not worthy of trust. That he was in fact deceiving her and Adam. The original sin is not eating the fruits. The original sin is suspicion. Kaya kung magsugod na gani ka o duda, ang relasyon na nindot mo ang dato, mamahimo na gabok. Suspicion that perhaps God is not trustworthy, that God was not their friend after all, but an exploiter who wanted to keep them ignorant so he can continue to exploit them. A suspicious person, someone who cannot trust others, is one who has no self-confidence, low self-esteem. Such a person will always need the affirmation of others, seeking always to be assured of his or her value. Such a one has no sense of self. And we think that the selfie is an assertion of self-worth. Perhaps. Pero hindi ganahan nyo kayo sa inyong naong na magsiyo kag selfie aron ipakatat nyo sa ibong kalibutan. Mas kang hindi ka yun ang naong na. It may well be, but when you spend so much of your time taking selfies and posting them on your status, what need are you trying to convey? How do you feel when you have posted so many of yourself in various poses and you do not get a single like? Kagipul ana ang mga tao, sige like mo. Kaya kung sige sa kag-like ka, mugara sa ka, kanagan sa sige. Post mo, now, support. Then you will have to make your selfie more sensational, more attention-grabbing, like bearing more flesh or doing something outrageous. Social media allows us to make a show of ourselves, to make ourselves a spectacle to the world. In social media, we could become either voyeurs, or objects of voyeurism. Our search for identity can make us victims of manipulation. Mo man ang tao nga, walay mabuo self-esteem. Dali ra kayo ulog-ulugan. Kung dali ra ka ulog-ulugan, dali ra sa kayo ka ilaron. Manipulation. The need to make a show of oneself stems from the desire to be loved by the world. When we were children, we seek approval from our parents. Mga basic need na to. That's why we always want to be good to our parents so that our parents can affirm us. When we become adolescents, we seek now the approval from our peers. We shift now from parents to peers. Now that we have become netizens, having been initiated into the brave new world of social media, we seek the approval of the world. But such desire only exposes us to possible manipulation by unscrupulous minds. Now, the other side of seeking affirmation is expressing one's ill feelings on social media. Kanang ranting. Kanang post na diha o mga tao na nakit kalagutan, hindi mo ipasaring na, hindi mo i-frontal na isuwat ng pangalan. Kaya makihay na ka. No? So, we think ranting on social media is an exercise of catharsis or the purging of negative feelings. But it could actually be an indication of our incapacity to confront persons who have caused us pain. Ano ka din? Kung doon ay tao na nakahimo ni kadaon, anong anak maka-social media? Di na di mahimong imuhang atun, o di ka manong, mahimong istorya. Ay, nang kay pasig awayin ta, alil ta mangaway sa social media. Nga naman, because at the very least, it is an immature way to solicit sympathy and to rally support against someone who crossed your path. Muna nga, di ba? Imo na isuat na imong kasagmuyo. May unday ang uban, naunsa ka, ngano ka, kinsana. Oh, nanay kay support. Kay nada kay sympathizers. And you're not satisfied with mere, we are with you. We want then others to say, we are with you, and we are also against the same person. That's how we divide communities. It is usually done under the cloak of anonymity because we are afraid to be sued for defamation or libel, and so it is an example of hiding behind the crowd to target someone, which is an inauthentic way of dealing with pain. Social media can be a way to connect with people, but it can also be used to sow suspicion, to foment hatred, to destroy relationships. They say social media builds communities, but a perfunctory scroll of comments from netizens can make you lose hope in humanity. Kana yung makabasa ko mga gikan sa mga BDS, pagkagrabe. Kailan mo BDS? There's so much profanity, vulgarity, idiocy being spewed in social media, and it can make you lose trust in humanity. How then must we use social media so that it can be truly a way of affirming the self, building trust, and strengthening communities? Because it can very well do those things. We begin by building up ourselves outside of social media. Ayaw nga, imong himuon ang social media haron mahusgan ka, malingon ka, doon na kay self-confidence. Don't use social media. Go outside of social media, build yourself up, build your confidence by having real relationships, by confronting real persons, by being part of real communities, by being human. You cannot make social media a tool for building up your life. Live your life outside of it. Do not allow yourself to be sucked up by virtual reality. And there are some people who, at the moment they wake up, they already look at their Facebook page. Nahanto na nasanto din. Ikaw sa trabaho, sige mo tanaw. Sakay pa doon sa trabaho, sige mo tanaw. And then, ikaw mo sa trabaho, nagsuko na ka. Ngayon, good morning, suko na ka, kaya nakabasa ka, pati na post. And then